In the last class, we have seen whenever we are writing or creating test cases and we want to run the test cases. So it doesn't make sense if we are not doing any validations. That means we need to validate whatever is coming from in the response, right? If let's say there is some request, so I need to validate that it's a SOAP envelope. There is a questions element there. In question elements, there are so many items. First item is this or second item is this, depending upon how you have written your test cases. So we need to add some assertions. So assertions are validation points which makes sure that whatever the response you are getting is fine and your test is passed or fails. So your test passes or fails based on your assertions. If you don't have any assertions on your test case, obviously your test is going to pass all the time. So let us have a quick review of all the assertions that we are having in SOAPUI. Okay, so SOAPUI has divided all the assertions in certain categories. So first is property content. So as the name suggests, property content means so we are receiving some kind of response. Whatever the content of the response, we can do some assertions on that. For example, contains. Contains means, let's see, I want that the response should contain this particular string, lights, right? So if I press OK, if you see this, this is green. That means the response contains this assertion. You can actually change. If I make it to lights 1, my assertion fails. That my current response does not have this particular kind of string. Okay. You can use a regular expression also. For example, you want either lights should be there. Let's say regular expression is a language for pattern matching. So if there is a whole, it's a whole language. So you can go through the rules which are used for this language. Let's say I want either lights or father should be there. Okay, and press OK. Okay. So if you see this, you have to press this checkbox so that it assumes that it's a regular expression. And if here also, if I just make 1, that means lights 1 or father. So you can actually make a combination also. So you can do regular expression matching also here, right? So this regular expressions comes with a little experience. You can go through any tutorial on the web on regular expressions. So you can type in regular expressions tutorial, and actually you can go through. So introduction, literal characters and special characters, it has been grouped. You can just go through any of these and do some practice. Or I think this is not a very good tutorial. This one is actually good. You can go to the Java tutorials, and here you can go through the regular expression tutorial. Okay. Coming back to the assertions. Then we have, let's see, other not contains. That means, let's say you don't want something to be contained. For example, I don't want here New Year to be in my content. So what I'll do, I'll say not contains New Year, and you can ignore the case. And if you see here again, it's not contains. This is again a valid assertion. Okay. Here also you can use regular expression. Then we have XPath match. Let us go to some XPath match. So in XPath match, what is XPath? So XPath is like a path of finding an element in XML document, right? So if I want to find, let's say, this particular element, when is Christmas celebrated in Banana? So there are certain ways of actually going to this element. So I want to check the content of this particular item, right? So what will I do? So I can do, there are actually lots of things which I can do with XPath. So let's say that you want to first find whether this particular element is existing or not. So questions is existing or not. So what I'll did I have to click on declare. So declare is going to give me the namespaces that are used. Then I write this method, or this is a function in XPath which is used to, if this particular element exists, this XPath exists, then it would be true. Okay, otherwise it would be false. Similarly, what I can do XPath for, let's say, some item. So what I'll do, declare, and I want to find the item 2 is do Christmas lights get hot. Okay. So what I can do, I can say item 2 contains text. The text contains. I may write the text equal to also or contains also. We don't worry. We will be talking about how to write XPath expression in a separate class. And let's say I want get hot. This expression should contain this, and it says it is true, right? This is item 2. So I can use it for some expression, like whether it contains this particular text or not. Okay. Then we can do, let's say I want to count how many elements are there. This item 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let me try some. 11, 12, 13, 14, 23, right? So let's do one XPath assertion, XPath match to declare, and I'll say the method is count for this particular item, and it says 23. Okay, and expected result is 23. So if you want to assert that when you are running the query, 23 items should be there, then you can do this expression. Okay. The question is contains assertion and XPath contains. Are they doing the same job? They are doing similar kind of job, but not exactly same. So the difference is when I am using contains, let's say I'm doing contains. So what it is doing, it is finding, matching it in the whole document. It can be here, it can be here, it can be here or here, right? But let's say I want to, in XPath match when I'm doing contains, the next path match I'm doing contains, I'm just finding that the second item contains this particular text. So I can be very specific if I want to use XPath. This is the difference between these two assertions. So XPath assertions are more popular than contains assertions. Okay. So the next assertion is, so similarly we can do XQuery match. So for example, last time also we did some XQuery match. In XQuery what we do, if let's say some item or it has, there are the 23 items. If I try to, I want to assert on all these items, then I won't be able to do in one single XPath because it just checks for one particular item. In that case, I need to write XQuery. Okay. So again we need to declare the namespace or then we have to actually create our own result tag, and therein I have to write some X query. So here I can write for I have to declare something, some variable, and give the X path for that, and I have to return something. So return $x item. Okay, and select from current. It is going to give you all the items, right? So you can save this if you want to assert that there should be all these items. Okay, save. Then this is was these were all the assertions on the content. Then we have certain assertions on the compliance status or standards. For example, invalid HTTP status code. So you don't want invalid HTTP status code. You don't want 300 or 500 series or 404 error, right? You don't want this, so that assertion has passed. Now, let's say if you are testing for some load testing and you want the server to, if you're trying to find some stress point or some breaking point, then you are expecting 500 series of error, right? So probably that you can do in your HTTP status code. Then we have not SOAP fault. So if I am giving some valid query, I am not expecting a SOAP fault. So I should give this assertion not SOAP fault. Then I want schema compliance, that whatever the resulting response I am getting, it should be compliant with the visible definition I am having. So this is schema compliance. SOAP fault. So let's say if I am missing out on something, let's say I'm missing on this, and I want to run the query. Okay, still it is giving, it's not giving SOAP fault. And if I delete this also, okay, it's giving something else, it's not giving SOAP fault. Anyway, sometimes it gives SOAP fault. So let's say for some invalid input, you want to give SOAP fault. So you will be using those things, okay? And now, once few of my queries have failed, just because the response has changed, so I'm just removing this. Can disable them. Disable means they are still there, but for the current test, you are not using that particular assertion, okay? So you can actually disable them, okay? Moving on to other assertions. So we have seen SOAP fault. Then if your web service is following some web security standards, so there might be some addressing headers and some security status in the response, then you might be doing some these two assertions. Then you can write your own script assertions. That means you can write a Groovy script and write the code to parse all these things. So there is an object called XML holder. If you want to go through how script assertion is done, you can go to again SOAPUI .org, and you can go to scripting, tips and tricks. XML nodes. Read here, see here, we can actually read the XML nodes like this. So you will be using this is actually some kind of programming. So I don't want to scare you by looking at this, but you can definitely go there, lock all these things, and you can assert on these things. So there is a method called assert. That means you can, whatever assertions you are doing here using the ID, you can write the code to do the same assertion. Okay. So these kind of assertions are generally required if you are using, some very elaborate test cases, or there are some things which SOAPUI is limited. SOAPUI free is actually not very efficient. Maybe SOAPUI Pro has a lot of things. It actually, in SOAPUI Pro, you can generate scripts also. Okay, so you can write your own script here. The only thing which you need to remember is the assert method. So if somebody asks you in the interview, how do you do script assertion? So what you will say, I will use a XML holder object. So this is the XML holder. Okay, and I will use this XML holder object to get all the node items, and so in $item you will get the node values, and then you will actually use this node values to assert something. So I can try using this, but I'm not a very good Ruby writer. So let's try. Okay, say script assertion fast. So there is one node which actually contains some values. Okay. Get node values, where is that assertion? Okay. We need to actually assert. So we need to actually write assert item is equal to this. This is not the right assertion. We have to write some code like this. Assert so we have to actually find this particular item, holder dot item 1 is equal to holder dot get node values item, say 1, log.info item 1. If we run this, so actually I have to write some other code also, I think. Dollar item or something. It is giving me some string value. Okay, and then I have to assert that this particular string is equal to when is Christmas 2012. So I'll be writing something like this. Assert item 1 is equal to when is Christmas 2012. Okay, so then you have to run this. There the script fails, so I have to convert it into some string or something like that. Anyway, so I'm not very good at writing Ruby script, but something like this you need to do using assert. Okay. Okay. Okay, so coming back to some other assertions. Disable this one. SLA. So what does SLA means? If you want to assert that particular request was received in the some time. So this response time is 957 milliseconds. So let's say I want to add this, that the response time is less than 1000 milliseconds. So my response SLA would be valid. If I made it less than 1000, then it would have been invalid. Okay. So this is one of the very important assertions that we can make. Then JMS is generally those assertions if you are using some messaging service. So we are not here doing any messaging service. We are just giving HTTP simple request. So we won't be using this. Then some security. If you are doing security testing, you don't want the response to contain some sensitive information. Then you do these kind of security testing. Here you have to actually mention what token you don't want to include. So you don't want to include meme tokens. So you need to give some description why you don't want to include this. So these are the various assertions, and you can expect lot of questions on assertions in your interview. So please go and try all these assertions at your end. So there is a question, how do we test web services against different endpoints? So what does endpoint mean? Endpoint means that the same service is running on different servers. For example, as we are talking about, let's say, PayPal service. So Walmart is a big client for PayPal. So he might dedicate a full server for Walmart, and he may have a different server for Macy's, right? So both are using the services. They may have different servers where the services are hosted. Maybe Walmart is using some kind of a different environment in which it needs some specific specifications for that service. So PayPal has hosted it on different endpoint. Now PayPal want to test the web services, so it needs to test the web service on both the endpoints. What you can do, if you see here, let's say this is the service, and you'll click on this interface and you see service endpoints here. Here in this service, we have just one endpoint, so you can simply go and add a new endpoint URL here. Okay. So some endpoints might have some username or password, or it may not have. So depending upon how you have the web service owners have configured it, you might be using those username and password here. Okay. This is an important question. It has been asked in a lot of interviews also. So I'll be taking these kind of questions also in today's tutorial. Thanks. Okay, coming back to Groovy scripting. So as we have seen, we can do a lot of things in Groovy. So let's see some of the important things which we can do in Groovy. So Groovy is a whole language. So if you want some help on Groovy, what you can do, you can write Groovy tutorial. This is the main website for all Groovy tutorials. You can start, you can actually download Groovy again, or you can run the Groovy in your SOAPUI. But what I'll recommend, that Groovy is a superset of Java. So it's a huge language. You won't be requiring it in your SOAPUI. SOAPUI is accessed in SOAPUI. You cannot do all the things with Groovy. What you can do only these, use these variables, log, context, and text runner. So every step which actually requires some Groovy scripting, for example, like let's say the setup script, right? So here also it is mentioned like what here log, test case, context, test runner, these four objects are available. So in Groovy scripting, you can do only use these four objects, right? So I'll give you these couple of examples where we can use all these four objects. Okay. So let's start with the most popular thing, how to read a property for some test property. Let's see what are the test properties are. So we know there are certain levels or scope or context of test properties called context or scope of properties in SOAPUI. Okay. So in the at the lowest level there is a test step property. Then we have test case property. Then we have test suite property. Then we have project property. Then we have global property. Then we can have system property, and we can have environment property. Okay. So let's see what all these properties are and why we would be needing all these properties. Okay. Let's start with the test step property. So all these properties which we have written here, we have written test steps. So these are all test step properties. If you see here on the left side, there are some properties which are fixed properties. You cannot change these property values. Like you cannot add here properties. You can add your own properties and custom properties, right? So whatever we are creating in the test step comes into test step properties. So all the test step properties are associated with some particular test case because test steps are part of the test case. Okay, so we know what is the use of test step properties. Coming to test case properties. So I would be needing some test case properties. Let's say that for particular test step, I need something which needs to be there in all the steps. Maybe some value or let's say you can have anything like let me think of something, some test case property. Maybe who run the test, right? I want to add here instead of this thing, I want to let's say write here who run the test, author. Okay, author of this test. So I might be writing this something like this. Or you can actually add here, you can add some data like at what time you want to run the test. The test was run on what date. So these are certain things which can be added in test case properties here, right? Then we have test suite properties. So maybe all the tests are run, like maybe they are related to a particular module. For example, let's say they are related to some um, modules. So here it's Google Ask. So maybe I want to name it as Google Ask or something like this, which is or you can say module or you can say Google Ask valid. So this test suite contains only valid test cases, right? So you may group your test cases and give some name, particular name. So that a property you can write in test suite property. Okay. Then you have project property. So all these are your projects. So Google search results. So in a company, you might be testing not one web service. You might be testing a couple of web services, and you might be creating a different projects for testing those web services. You might not do everything into one. Okay. So I'm here. Let's say I'm doing Yahoo. I'm doing Stockport, Sample, and these projects have some properties. For example, project one, the web server I am using is, it's a, let's say project one is an in-house web service. So maybe I have some special value for this. Like I can write here type and value I can write here in-house. Okay. Now for stock code, let's say this particular project property would be like something else. Type, and here the project property is let's say PayPal. Okay. So these kind of properties are related to a project. And what does this mean? The scope of this property is the whole project. So I can access this property anywhere in the project. So I can use in test, like I can access in test suite. I can access in all the test cases. If there are more than one test suite, then also I can access all the project properties. Similarly, all the test suite properties are accessible in all the test cases. So if this is a sample project, if there are some test suite properties, so let's say there are some custom properties for the simple test suite. So these properties are accessible in all my test cases. Okay. So these are the project properties. Okay. So let's create some test suite property here. Let's say I want to create some property. TS prop 1. And for test suite level, let's say I want to include only valid test cases. So my name of this property is only valid. Okay, so I'm dividing or grouping my test cases into valid, invalid. Probably I want functional test cases, right? So all these are functional test cases. Here I would be writing load test cases. Here I would be writing security test cases, right? So, but in this suite, I'm writing only functional test cases. So I might be writing here valid functional test case. Okay. Let me not change this. Okay. So I can create another test step, some test step. And anyway, you can use Groovy. I'll show you how to use Groovy to do the transfers. So let me see if this is available here. Okay. So test suite 1. Okay. If you see here in test suite 1, this drop down has come up already TS prop 1. So all the properties are available for property transfer. I can transfer this value, like this particular value, whatever I have created, into, let's say I want to add something here. Test suite prop. Okay. So I can transfer this value to target property, TS property, and let's do the transfer. So I have transferred the test suite property to test step property, right? So using all these properties, I can set up any properties anywhere, and I can do the transfers from one source, any source to another source. When you write your property, it will come here. Like if it's a test suite property, it will come here. If it's a, let's say, stock code property, if you see here, we created a type, and I can transfer it to this, let's say, some other properties. So we can do the transfer. If I run this PayPal would be transferred. So I can transfer any property from any level to any level. Okay. So coming back to the other scope, so we have seen how to set up test step property, then test case property, then test suite property, and then project property. Now there could be some properties which are global. Global means accessible in all the projects. So those properties can be set using file preferences. If you see here global properties, I've already created global property. So one example of global property could be like if you want to use connection string for Oracle database, right? So you cannot actually write that connection value. You need not write anything again and again in your program. So you can set up here so that you can just copy from there. So you can write here Oracle driver, and you can set here Oracle dot driver dot Oracle driver. Okay. So wherever you are using your JDBC connections, probably you will be using this Oracle driver, and you can transfer it to the other property. Okay. So these this is one of the example of global properties. Sometimes you might have to include the server name or some endpoint also you might be putting in your global properties. So depends upon how your projects are being executed. Something which needs to be required. If you own all the projects, probably maybe you can write the author name also in global properties, or you want to run something else. Some Java code also you can run, right, in properties, right? Yes, we can always reverse from test step to test suite level. So we can, this is a test step property, right, company symbol, and I can transfer it to test suite level. Okay. So this way we can access all these properties using the ID. So let's do the same thing using Groovy scripting. In Groovy, we can do it in two ways. So coming back to our project, we can do the same thing in two ways. One is writing the context. So if you, let me copy paste this. Okay, so first let me explain what does this mean. Context is an object which is accessible. If you see here, my script can be invoked using log, context, and test runner. Log I have mentioned, whatever I write here. So if you see here, this bottom panel is a log. This is a script log which is accessible from all your test cases. Whatever I am writing here, that is saved in your script log. Okay. So I can write here anything log.info. So author, and I can run this. If you see here, it is coming here, and if you see the script log also, when you run the test cases, it would come here. So if you run your test case with this information, it would come in your script log. Let's do this. Let me see if we have made any changes in the properties. The request has failed. Let me see that request has failed. Okay, because it did not meet SLA. That's actually fine. So I think there is something wrong with the request. This must. Okay. So I can write the test cases, run the test case. Now it is working fine. Okay. And if you see here script log, you can see my name, author Shilpi, right? So whatever you are writing in your script, if you are typing anything in log, you can only print to the log, and that would come here in this script log. And you can actually just export all the log. You can copy to clipboard, or you can export to a file. Okay. So coming back to Groovy scripting. So log is clear. Then we have this object, context object. Context tells you what is the context, current context. So my current context is I'm running this particular test case 1, which is part of test suite 1, which is part of the Google project, right? So I can access any properties from anything from all in this current context. So this context gives me the current context. So I can write context.expand My properties prop 1. What is my properties? Actually, my properties is the name of the property step. So in this case, it would be not my properties, it would be just properties. If you see here, the name of the property step is properties. Okay. So, and what property I want to retrieve? Result. So here I would be writing result. And if I want to print this to log, so I say log.info prop 1. This prop 1. And we can run the script, and if you see here, this particular log, let me run this again. Okay, so when can Christmas tree be put up? This is the value which has been printed. Okay, so now let's say I want to print the test case property. Okay, so this is the test case. And this is the current context. In the current context, there might be different test steps, but the test case would be same, right? So this Groovy script is part of the same test case. So I don't have to mention the test case name. I just have to write test case and followed by the name of the property. So what is the test case property we have created? Author. Okay, so let's write here author. And again, I'll be printing this to the log and run this again. If you see here again, author and this thing, the property and the value has been printed. This is not the, this is the value. Okay. So this is the first one, property one. This is the author. Let me be more explicit. Prop 1. Now I think this is more clear. And similarly, I can write here the top 2 also. Dollar top 2. Okay, similarly, I can write here for test suite. So if we have any test suite property, do we have any test suite property? Yeah. So we have test suite property module. Okay. So again, you will write only test suite because this is the current test suite. And here I'll write module. This is the name of the property I want to print. And instead of prop 2, I'll write prop 3. Then we have global properties. So what is the name of the global property? Oracle driver was there, right? So in global, again I have to give just global and I'll write Oracle driver. And here I can write prop 4. Then we have environment properties. Environment properties means if you are your system environment. In your computer, if you go here system properties and there is the system properties, environment variables. So these are all the environment variables. Okay. OS, let's say I want to print the OS. Okay. So I can go here and I can write here OS. And I can run this. See here, Windows NT has come up. So let's see prop 1, when can Christmas tree be put up? This is prop 2, which is a test case property. This is a test suite property. Prop 4 is a global property, and prop 5 is the environment variable property. Right? So you can actually use all this, and I can put this into a document if you want. So this is the groovy code to access current context properties. Current context properties. Okay. You can do the same thing using the test runner variable. So we have another variable which is called a test runner object. So let's see how to use this. I'm just copy pasting it. Copy. So in test runner object, if you see, again it's the same thing. Instead of using context object, which is the current context, we are using test runner object. So test runner means the current runner of this, whenever I am running, I'm running the test runner, right? So if I run this test suite, or if I'm run this test case, so it is actually, there is a runner class, test runner class, which is running this. You don't have to dig deep into this. So this is can be used to run anything. You can use this to run the test suite, to run a particular test case or test step. So again, this test runner is the current run. In the current run, what is the test case? And you can access the properties of those test case by this method. Get test step by name. Then you give the name of the property. So here in the test step, what was the name of the property? Result. So here you will be writing result. Oh, sorry. This is the name of the test step. So this is, sorry, properties, name of the test step, and result. Okay, that's fine. It's already there. Then the test case property. What is the property value? Name of the property is author. Okay, then test suite. What is the name of the property? Let's say module. So here I will be writing module. Project property, project prop. So it is already there. And the global property, you can write this one, or Oracle driver also you can write. So the same thing which we are accessing using test runner. So if I run this, you can see all these properties coming up. So this is the test property, test case, test suite, project, and global property. Okay. So these are the two ways where we can access the properties, right? So we can access also, and there is another method called set property value. So what you can do, you can put this into an object, and you can set also. Let's say, let's do one thing. Now I want, say, define new test step prop is equal to dot set property value. Okay, and here I would be writing new test step top value dot set property value. This has, I think, two arguments. We can check this. This is a test runner test place object. So you can go to the API. The API is SOAPUI, and you can check what are the methods here. You can go to test runner. So you can see there are so many APIs. You don't have to be afraid of this. So with practice only, you will be having a hang on of what exact things you would be reading. Okay, so we have a test case. You can do set property also. Let's see how we can do. Okay, so in test runner only we can actually find the methods in test runner. Let's see what are the methods in test runner. So to find the test methods in test runner, let me first remove this. You can do copy this and you can paste it and run this. So these are the methods which are there. So let's see, there is some set property method. We don't have set property here, but I think we can do it. I'll show you how to do it. If you Google, there is one. There are some properties, or here in tips and tricks also we have set properties. Okay, yeah, test case dot set property value that we can do. Okay. So coming back to this, you can write here. This, this is the current context, set property value. If you want to set the property value for the test case, let's say there would be two arguments. First would be the name of the property, and second would be, so let's say I am writing unknown, and let us run this. So if you see here, the property value has been changed. So this way you can actually set the property value of the test case. Similarly, you can set the property value of the test suite case dot test suite dot set property value. So test suite has ps prop 1. Let's change this property. Ps prop 1 to test. Okay. New property. If you see here, the changes have been made. Similarly, you can make changes also, like in all the properties, you can make changes. So let me note down, copy this code also, and I can copy this code also. Okay. This code is to Groovy code to access test properties to test runner. Properties to test runner. And this code is to set properties to test runner. Okay. Then we can see, as I have told you, like for every method, every class, you can see some methods. For test runner class, I can see this method. Let me change this. For example, I want to see what are the methods available in context class. Instead of test runner, I write context. It doesn't have any. Okay. For test runner, it gives me. Should give me actually. For test runner, it is giving me. For test case, is it giving? Okay. So this is accessible only for test runner. Even for context, it is not giving. Okay, I think when we run the test, then it would be giving. It should give. Let me run this. Again, I think there is something. Script log. We don't have anything in the script log. Okay. Anyway, test runner objects can be seen. You can see the test runner objects. And here, if you see, we can use equals, get class, include string, wait, get current context, get run context, get start time. If you want to print when this test started, you can use this particular get start time. For example, you want to print, not here, let's say in this test case script here, in setup script, you want to write when this test started, you want to log in these details. So you can write log.info test runner dot get start time. Okay. Now when you run this, okay, there was some sensitive information. Let me just remove that. Okay, let me disable it. Let's run this again. And here in the, okay, you should see this in your script log. If you see, they have given the time. This is actually the time in some format. You need to convert this format into something. So you can use this method, and what else we can use from this? Okay, let's see. There are some other methods which we can use. We can use a run step method. So if you want to run a particular step, let's say I want to iterate. So this is a very important thing. Let's say I want to run this particular step, test script one step 5 times. So otherwise, how would I do? I cannot do it right now. Here I cannot say that run this particular step 5 times. I cannot do iterations here. But in Groovy, I can write. So I can, in Groovy script, I can say test runner dot run test step by name. Now I have to put this into a loop. So you must have done loops in your language classes. I can write a for loop like this for x in 1 to, let's say, 5. Okay, and you can run this particular test case 5 times. This particular test script. So in this test script says log info test. I'm just printing it. So you may choose to run any other test step also. So let us run this and see whether this test step is running 5 times or not. If you see here in the script log, the test is running 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 times for the Groovy script and one time which it ran for the first time. So iterations can be done on the test step, which might not have been possible otherwise. So I can copy this code also. To run a step several times. Okay, so we can do, there is another, there are a couple of other methods in context also. So if you want to copy the response, whatever the response is coming, so this is in this particular request, this is the request, this is the response. So you can actually log this response. If tomorrow in the interview somebody asks you that you have to save the response in a file or something, so how would you do that? So what you'll say, you can write a Groovy script. You can write here content is equal to, like I'm just creating a variable content, context.http response content. And if you see here, it should come, like you need to actually run the test case for this. Okay, so because it is reading the response, now if you go to this script log, okay, so you can copy to the clipboard, and if you want, so this is the response you can save, you have received, and you can save it in the file. So this is another good thing. If whenever you are giving an interview, you can say that I can save the response also in a file, right? Using context object. Okay. Again, let me just copy this. To log the response content. Okay. Then if you want to see what is the total time taken by your test case, this is another very important thing. Probably you want to compare it with something, or if you want to note down how much today the test case, tomorrow it might take us some different time. Again, you can run the test case. And if you see here, it says 729 in the script log. Everything is there in the script log. So you can just see the script log. And let me copy this again. So these are some handy, you can say handy scripts which you might be using in your at your workplace, and definitely it's going to help you in the interviews also. Ramani is asking me how this get time taken is different from SLA. SLA, we are doing the assertion. Uh, so what we are doing is like we are checking the actual with whatever we are expecting. Here we are logging the actual time. We are just finding the actual time. We are not asserting anything. So I can always put this into a string and do some assertions. Say time is equal to this, and assert time is equal to, let's say, 7:50:29, and then you can write this. So this whole thing is SLA, but you just have to, if you just have to log in the time, then you can do using this particular method, get time taken. So you can see this test runner method. There are so many things you can do, and you can find the API for all the classes of SOAPUI in soapui.org API docs. So this is the only place where we have the information of all the classes and the objects. Okay, and if you want to find the methods for a particular test class, for example, I want to find the methods in test runner, so I'll just browse it to test runner. And then I can just see the methods. Although if you see here, they haven't given all the methods which are available, but anyway, still it would be helpful to you. Okay. So far we have seen how we can use Groovy scripting. Now we'll see how we can do data-driven testing. So if you'll see that here I can test this test case with one set of values, right? So when I'm sending the request, it is just Christmas. So even if I put this into a property, it would be just one set of values. If I have to run the test case, so different sets of values, what we have to do that is called data-driven testing, right? In SOAPUI trial version, free version, I cannot do it directly. For this, I might have to write 100 lines of Groovy code, in which I will be opening up a file, and let's say I have to open up a text file and I have to extract each and every row, then I have to put all those rows like columns into some properties and transfer the properties, write the Groovy script. So it's a long list of code, right? But in SOAPUI Pro, this can be done very easily. So let's see how it can be done in SOAPUI Pro. So this is SOAPUI Pro. If you see here, so this is actually SOAPUI Pro. So it looks similar to SOAPUI trial version, but if you see here, let us import this currency converter. I'm creating another project, new SOAPUI project, and I'll give the project name as currency converter, and I have to import the WSDL also. So I'll just go to web service. Okay, this is the WSDL definition, so I can copy paste. Okay. So these are the two protocols. So I can remove this one. So if you just see this, there is a request. If you see here, there are a lot of other things also. So in SOAP UI free version, we have just these things. We have XML and RAW. Here if you see, we have two other tabs, outline and form. If you see outline, it gives you information like this, and form, it's a kind of form like thing, so it is pretty easy to understand. And simply like here, what you have to do, you have to just give, let's say I'm giving here AUD, which is Australian dollars, to USD, US dollars, and run this. So it gives you the conversion rate, and so it's easily readable because it's in a tree-like structure. And the best part is to give the assertions. You can actually just right-click here. It is not working. You can simply right-click and okay, because it's not added to a test. First, I have to add to the test case. Now I can run this, and now I can add to, see, I can add to a property directly if I need to, and I can add assertions. So I want to add assertion for content, count, existence, or for some matching regular expression, or for some script. So I can directly do that. Let's say I want to assert for the count. So automatically it declares the namespace, it writes the XPath expression also, and it selects the result from the current run, and you can save this. Okay, so this is actually pretty easy or simpler as compared to SOAPUI free version, but our main purpose of using SOAP UI Pro version is data-driven testing. So I want to test the same request for multiple, let's say AUD or multiple from currency and true currency operations, right? Combinations. So what I'll do in test case, again, I'll say add step. If you see here, there are lots of other steps also apart. We have data source loop, and some data sync and data generator. We are not going to cover this. We are just going for data source. So we'll say data source. You can give us some new name also. So data source as let's say grid. So I'm using a table wherein you will be writing all these information. Here in this grid, you add a name of the property. So we will have we have from currency. Okay. Then we have to currency. Okay. Then we have the rate. So I can write the expected rate. Okay. So here I would choose the data source as, let's say, grid. So grid means you can create your own table here in SOAP UI, and it will save. You can add the value. Say you can add USD to INR, and then you can add, let's say, AUD to INR, and you can add some more options also. And let's see what are the other options. You can go to web service x.net and currency converter. So let's see if I can, or let's use euro. Okay, EUR. EUR to INR. Okay, and what is the expected rate? Um, okay, So what is the expected rate? The rate would be, let's try to run and let's see what is the current rate. This might be changing. So when we are asserting, it may not assert properly, but let's see what could be the rate. What is the current rate? So here for I have to run this. Let's say AUD to INR. What is the current rate? 57.3081 is AUD, right? 57.081. Then 3081. Okay, correct it. Then we have USD to INR 55.065. 55.065 and this is 3081. Then what is Euro? 72.5487. 72.5487. Okay, so I have created a grid and I want to run the test. I want to run the test for all these three values. Okay, so I want to run my test using all these three values. So how can I do this? This is my test case. Okay, and if you see this, but try to run this. In conversion rate, if this is the request, I have to right click this, go to the outline mode. You can right click and say get data, source grid from currency, get data, source grid to currency. Okay, so this is your what you call it, your request parameters. Then in the response, what you have to do, you have to assert, right? That for that particular content. So you have to assert that whatever is coming is from the grid. So here, instead of writing it directly, you will say get data from the grid expected rate. Okay, and save it. Right now, what you will do? You will run your test case. So run this test case. So it failed. Let's see why it failed. The reason it failed is, and it ran only once. I was saying that you can do it 3 times, but it ran once. It failed because the expecting was 55.065, but actual was 55.075. So this is a real-time request. So this thing keeps on changing. So don't worry about this. Why it did not run 3 times, that we have to see. So after creating the grid, we have to tell the test step that it has to create a loop. So we need to create a new data source loop test, new step. So this is, let's say this is data source loop 1. Press OK. And then you have to configure it and put the step after the request. So you need to configure it so that the step would be data source grid and the target step would be the request. You want to run this request so any number of times, right? So press OK. And one more thing, you don't want to stop the test if any assertion fails, right? Let's say I want to continue with other values also. So what I'll do, I'll go to test case options, and if you see here abort on error, I would just uncheck this and press OK. Now let me run the test again. If you see here, for every test step, you can see here, you can double click and okay, so if you double click it, it tells you exactly what value it used. First thing it used USD INR. The response message was this, and this were the messages because my assertion failed. It was expecting 0.065 and actual was this, and there are these assertions. Okay, so coming back to the test case, so you can double click on any other. So this was the current row. You can do the current row is equal to 2. So you can see this step also. This was the request for the next one. Next one was AUD INR, and this was the response message. And these are the properties for that response message, right? Then for the third row, again, this was the request for the third row. The third row took, the third request took 680 milliseconds. You can double click it and you can see all these things again, right? So this way you can run the same request for n number of rows and you can do the assertions. Okay. So this is the one thing you can do. Here I created a grid. Now let's create another test case where I am creating a what you call an Excel sheet. Okay, so I can write the new test case 2. In this test case, what I am doing, I'll again add a test request. Okay, and then what I'll do, I'll add the data source. And in this data source, instead of grid, I can use Excel. Okay, so for this, I have to actually browse for an Excel sheet, start from some location and do it. I don't have Excel, my MS Excel installed on this machine, so I won't be able to show you. But you can browse to an Excel and write the worksheet name and start Excel. What I can do is like maybe I can create it at my machine and export it. Let me try doing that. So I can create an Excel. But we make sure that the name are exactly the same as the property name. So I have from currency to currency, and third was expected rate. Okay. So first is AUD. I think first is USD, or I can do anything like. Then AUD euro, and this one is INR, 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 and this is some value. I'm just writing random value, maybe 56, 58. Okay, and let's save it. Currency.excel, save. Now I need to transfer this file to my TeamViewer machine. So what I'll do a file transfer. I'll go to that particular so I have spy drive. Okay, so we have currency. I can close this and I can copy it to this machine. Okay, so it has been copied. So let's see if it is accessible here. I can browse and so let's see. Yeah, currency.excel is here. And the worksheet I don't have to mention, it's the default one. I don't think one. Hmm, uh, Let me add some properties from. So the property name has to be same currency. Then second is to currency. Then third is expected date. I don't think. Okay, we can run this. Okay. Okay, I think because we don't have those Excel installed, so it is not able to. There are not many. Some files are missing. Otherwise, it would this grid would have been populated, and rest of the steps would have been the same steps as we did in the grid, right? Similarly, like we can do another test case, and herein I want to use the database as my source. So what I'll do in the test step, again I'll add the test request, the same request, okay, and again what I'll do, I'll add the data source. So data source, I would say JDBC. I want to connect to my Oracle database. So what I'll do, again I'll create three properties from currency and to currency. Actually, I have already created a database. In the database, I have created actually a table. Let me show you the table. Select star from currency I have created. So there are four columns from currency, to currency, value and active value. So I am just trying to import three from currency, to currency and value. So third would be value. Value is same as rate. So here in data source, what I'll give JDBC. So again, I have to give all the information for JDBC connection. So first thing what we have to remember is whenever we are doing any JDBC, any database connectivity, we have to copy the jar file in this folder. Jar file in the folder wherein my SOAPUI is installed. So where is my SOAPUI installed? It is generally installed in my computer. Browse to C directory, see program files, smart beer, SOAPUI Pro, and you have to go to bin ext, and here if you see you have to copy this jar file. You can download saying Oracle driver, Java Oracle driver, and there you would be giving this link, and you can copy this, download this, and copy it here in this file. And after you copy it, you need to close your SOAPUI and then run it again. Then only you can work on JDBC connection, right? So here I have to write the driver. Driver is name of the driver is Oracle dot driver dot Oracle driver. So in your company, you might be using some other database, MySQL or IBM DB2 or SQL Server. So every database has a different driver and a different connection string. Okay. So the connection string, what you have, you can copy it from, you can just search Google JDBC connection string for Oracle. So I have already created this one, so I can copy it from there. So I can copy from here. So this is JDBC Oracle. HR is my database and Whitebox View is my password. I can write my password again. And I would test the connection. So it says successfully tested. Okay. Then run this and specify the national rows. You can write 0 to get all. I have to write the SQL query also. So select let's say from currency, comma to currency, comma value from currency. So this is my table. Okay. And you can run this. There is some invalid character. Okay. So if you see here, it has imported all the data. So after this is done, you can do the same steps. You can create the data source grid. You can create, you have already created the data source. You have to just create the loop. So you can run the test. Make sure your data source is first, then your test request. So in your test request again, what you have to do, you have to just right click and say get data from data source, from currency, right click, get data from data source to currency, and if you want to run the request, here you can add assertion for content, and here again you can write get data from the property value. Okay, save. Since I haven't written any property value, it might fail, it will fail in fact, because there is nothing, that value is null. Again, I have to write a data source loop step, and I have to make this as the last one. And you can set the properties. Target step would be test request. Press OK and then run this. and it did not run. The reason, I have to uncheck this because I don't want my step to fail. Okay, and run this again. Although my test step is failing because it was expecting null and actual was this, but this is how you can do your data driven testing. Okay. So the question is the expected value is different from the actual value. So when the expected, your job is not to make them same. Your job is to find out whether it is same or not. So whenever you are giving a web service to test, you would be given some grid like this. You would be given some data like this in an Excel sheet, on a CSV file, or in a text file. Some file you would be given some all this information. You just have to load that file into this grid. So either it could be your database or anything. You are not going to create, you are not going to write what values would be there for any of these columns. Okay, you have to test whether this is expected and what it is coming. If it is coming, it is failing, then you will be writing in your test case document that this thing has failed. Okay. So in SOAPUI Pro, you can create reports. You can just click on test case and say format the test report in data export or test case report style, and press OK. So it will generate a nice report for you. So this kind of report is generated. So this option is not there in your SOAPUI. Okay. So in tomorrow if you go and they'll ask you how would you compare your test case results. So you will say I'll generate a report and compare the results. Right. Or you can actually do all other things, like there are some other steps also. There are some data syncing steps and all those things. If you see here, there is some data sync and data generation steps. I have no clue about what this steps, and there is an assertion test step also. So that also is not present in your main this thing. Then it's very easy to assert. You have to just right click and you don't have to write namespaces or XPath. It automatically generates. So these kind of facilities are not there in the SOAPUI free version. So, but the main advantage is data driven testing. Okay.